From the world of fixed operations where miracles happen daily, usually between lunch and the next breakdown, it's Fixed Ops Focus with Dave Rogers and Steve Shaw. Dave, who can sell a transmission flush like a spa treatment, and Steve, the man whose diagnostic notes are longer than most novels.
Dave Rogers, what's going on? How are you doing today?
Fantastic, Steve Shaw. How are you?
I am doing amazing. Better than 90% of the world today.
It's awesome. Better than 90%. That's awesome. I love it.
Well, I think everybody's probably tired of us talking about the weather. So what's on your mind today?
Yeah, we're not talking about the weather today. That's for damn sure. What makes you 90% or better than 90%? What brought you to there today?
Oh, what brought me to that conclusion? Well, it was 72
that level.
here,
That's a pretty good level.
It was 70. It was 72 here.
Oh, there you go. Now you're talking about the weather.
I know, right?
You're rubbing it in. That's what you're doing. So you don't want to talk about the weather, but you bait me into it.
I don't know, it seems like a good way to open everything. And we do that a lot in class too. Everybody types their weather, sometimes when we get ready to start our class,
Yeah, well, this time of the year and what's going on right now, we could talk about the weather, but nobody's having good weather in the Northeast all the way out to the West. So, but
I did get into a conversation today. I was talking to some different people. We've been talking about the convention, and depending on when this airs, be probably right after the convention. But I did talk to a bunch of people about AI, and then I recently helped a dealership group put their processes together utilizing AI. And so it's pretty awesome. That was a cool use of the tool, especially, I'm not the greatest typer in the world right now. And so to be able to utilize AI for that, to write out the Word document or write the stuff out and put it into Word was pretty cool. But I've been working with this group on process improvement, which is why they hired me. And, most of the time I get hired to do, training, right? Sales training and help move the RO performance. But this group hired me to help them or guide them write their process improvement manual. So we set out actually 2 years ago. We set out 2 years ago to document every process in their store, which has led me to this cool sign that I have in my office. And I gave it to every single service manager in this group. And you can talk about a lot of things, but as the sign said, did you document it? Does everybody know what they are supposed to do? So we spent 2 years, a couple days each month, not day by day, but we have developed from from basically that phone call. We have a BDC operations manual. And then when the customer drives in, what is supposed to be done from, as we would say, welcome all the way to the final walk around and delivery process. So a pretty amazing chain of events.
that's really cool. At least, I would say we don't have that, or we don't have it as good as we should. And you're making me think back when I was with Chrysler for those years, and they evolved the 5 stars into being process oriented, and we had to do our flow charts and stuff. And then even Toyota had their thing, Signature, I believe it was called, and then
Ford
Honda
Blue
had
Oval.
theirs too, right? Excel. That's good. It sounds like I guess a next level up type dealership that they're involved, they're interested in doing that. What got them to do that? You said 4 stores.
They got
Is there-
4 stores. It's a local, it's a small group, family owned.
Mhm.
And their fixed ops director is pretty strong character. But he really just wanted to have standardization. And I know a lot of people struggle with that. It's small enough, it's not a 30, 40 store group like yourself that they can, and they're similar brands. They were able, and they have a lot of change. They can work at this store over here. And so the fixed director wanted all of these things documented in case of movement. And actually, it's funny is they've moved people around, from, one Nissan store to another Nissan store, even cross brands. And so the manual has done a good job. It is, the funny thing is that even within that small group, the way I would do a walk around particularly, they do it a little bit different, which is totally fine. I'm glad. I don't care how people particularly do their walk around, especially if there's a compelling reason for it. The only difference is like one store will walk around a car backwards, and then another store will walk around forwards. And they didn't get too, too strict or they wouldn't say everybody must do it within the store. They all had to do it the same way. They
Okay.
didn't say that they had to do it the same way, all 4 at all 4 locations. So that was pretty cool. I think it was flexible that,
Right.
everybody had an input, and which was really cool to watch the managers, go out to their people. This is why it took a long time, but it's an evolving document, and I would say that the walk around, the write up process, the delivery process, these things continue to change over and over. People change the way they, a guy got promoted, so what he was doing within the process got removed. So although it's been 2 years we've been working on it, it's an evolution, and that document just continues to evolve each and every day. So it's been a cool project, and to see it evolve. The one thing I would question is, do you follow it? Do you follow it every no, we have it. Did you write it? Did you agree to it? And then did you follow it? You know what I mean? And obviously there comes the biggest challenge, are you following, are you doing all of the things that you say that you're going to do?
Yeah, that was my I don't know. That was always my thing. We did it because we were forced to do it. Loved the idea. Thought it was a great plan. But you kind of just practiced for the inspections, right? When you had the inspection from the factory and they were going to come grill your people, and so you kind of just practiced. You really just practiced for that. You didn't even practice for the process, which it kind of ruined it after a while. But and then there's a large group in my area that claims that they written processes. They claim all this stuff and everything else, and 90% of that is BS. It's not the same. They don't follow it. They don't do the consistent thing. And I love the idea. I love the concept. I think what I developed out of that was to give a basic outline. I think is what worked best. I think when I got the Honda and I got the Honda Excel or the Toyota Signature, even though they wanted us to have these big long flow charts and all these things, I always found that the best thing was just keep it bullet point it simple, give them, a few things to do because, it's like herding squirrels, man. It's just, you got so many different personalities and, you know, my group now, you know, 30 stores, three different owners operating their stores. The GMs have autonomy to do their thing. Yeah, I'd lose my mind if I probably tried to, I could never come up with one book, but, we're gonna have to try to do something. I think at some of these stores because I think it's a good idea for the foundation.
Well,
So when
I
you,
think I think it's important. I think it's important to have that, certainly an outline.
yeah,
But I keep hearing these things. We are a very litigious society these days.
yes,
And so one of the things that did come out of this was very interesting. Small store, little town, just outside of the big city here. One advisor, he was a very aggressive service advisor. And whereas we were all going down this path and doing it one way, this one particular advisor liked to do a little bit more. Sometimes, not all the time. And so I noticed he was doing this and we were training. I noticed that I'm going to say grandma. Grandma would come in and this advisor would be very aggressive, or somebody older, or whatever. And a good looking guy, very articulate. But when, different people would come in, they might take a different approach. And whereas I'm just going to say grandma comes in and the hood gets popped and the brake fluid gets checked. But when mom or dad or attorney came in, or, the regular person, none of that stuff happened. And so that bothers me very much. It hurts my heart. And then I think about the dealer's pocketbook because we are a litigious society.
oh, yeah,
Grandma's son or grandson happens to be an attorney, and she bought a brake fluid exchange
yeah.
and her son or someone else didn't. That leaves us pretty well open. I got profiled or discrimination. And so that hurts my heart, and it's going to hurt the dealer's wallet. So I believe that having those things written out, as tough as it is sometimes, it's the most important thing we can do.
No, it's true. I use that almost a very similar example on that with pricing. You know, you have an advisor go back to parts and say, "Hey, can you knock $25 off that part or $50 off the part?" And I mean, my thing is you don't do that. It's always billed out at whatever we're selling it at, whatever that is, that markup, right? It's always the same thing. Let's call it our list price, you know. And then if you're going to discount something, and you put a discount underneath it, because you're right, you're going to get, whether it's going to be somebody's grandmother, whether it's going to be, you know, uh, the person works for a lawyer, right? You're going to get a
Yeah, oh, yeah.
minority, you're going to get something like that. And you say, well, how come you charge Mr. White $300 for that part, but you charge, Mrs., the colored woman or the Spanish person, how come you charge them 350 for the same part? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like they could cut different deals and you could give them discounts on the repair orders, but you're right. It's such a crazy environment out there that you have to be. Yeah, that's a great one. And I've let everybody know, but that's probably something we should let them know every month. Don't do it.
Yeah, and to the driveway manager's credit, because we were talking about it, and this particular individual is very good. If you want to make that argument that he had a great, he saw his performance was very good, his numbers were great, probably one of the top guys in the store. And then you got to go though. Well, why is he the top guy? Is he taking advantage of somebody and other people are not?
Exactly.
And the driveway manager here actually did a great job and said, no, this is our process. This is how we do business. And you have to do it this way. Nobody wants to say do it this way or the highway. And I never say do it my way or the highway, certainly as a consultant. But as a manager, I think we got to hold the line and say, this is how we're going to do business. We have documented this process. You've agreed to it. And we got to hold them accountable and responsible for doing it that way.
Yeah, I think for managers and out there and stuff and anybody in the business, if you can document some of these key things and you could put out an outline, it should make your job easier, right? It really should. It gives the guidelines and then you got the rule book to smack them in the nose with when they don't follow it, right? You know, you
Well,
know,
remember when we were down in the Keys together and I had my summit, we had a speaker and he said, the only thing that you can control is the process. I can't control anybody's behavior, but I can control the process. And I believe that with all my heart as well, right? We wrote a process and we've all agreed to it and I'm going to make sure here's the rails, right? You can do this and you can do this. If you get outside of these, now we got an issue. And I still like you. I still think you're a good person, but the process says this and I need you to stay within those guidelines.
yeah. And then listen, that's where being a good manager, you gotta have the red flags on the process. You got to make sure that you know when someone deviates, right? It's that shock collar type mentality when they go outside the perimeter. There's some kind of there has to be some way to you're notified. And again, in today's world with so much stuff going on, you have to make sure that they stay within the rails, like you said, that you gave them, the parameters that they're given. So I can see how it would definitely help somebody, and especially a newer manager, if you can put down some processes that everyone can agree on. And I think you should start small too, right? So it doesn't have to be a 14-page book.
Right, right. But I think that book, I worked with a group one time and it done this plenty of times over the years of consulting. But and the best example is a guy up in Vermont or up in New Hampshire. His name was Al. And I love Al to death. Al is just, he's a shit. And so Al built Al's Bible. And so day one, there was a couple pages, but over the course of many years, everything we did, Al put it in his Bible and love Al to death. You'd love him. He's just a big burly guy with a huge beard and a mustache and, loves the snow and loves the outdoors. Super cool dude. But Al had his Bible and kudos to Al. And he held people accountable. It's like, hey, we put it in the Bible. That's what he called it. We put it in the Bible. That's how we're going to do business. And so good deal.
That's funny. Yeah, instead of I was saying 14 pages, I was thinking like 1,400 pages or 14 chapters is what that's what I was really thinking. Try to keep it to 14 pages is probably what you should do.
Well, there's whatever you want to call it, nine,
Yeah,
10 key processes that we have
yeah.
from write
That's
up,
it. That's what I mean, right?
so there's a page for each. And I think we talked about this once before. I want my people to say welcome. And that's my favorite word. We do the welcome dance. I want everybody to say welcome. And that's not to say that everybody has to, but I think it's important that they do the Piazza way at Piazza and how your guys want it. Uh, I think that's a key component to longevity, retention, what's the customer's expectation. And if we don't tell them, somebody might be greeting the customer the way they want to.
Right. No, so when you follow up with these stores, how is their
Execution.
compliance to the process?
Execution.
And well,
That's the tough part.
and the reason I say that is, I used to always feel that would give like a new employee a head start, right? You have something to give somebody, right? Instead of just throwing them on the line. When you follow back up with them, I mean, is it hit or miss? Are they pretty good? What do you find?
I'm going to tell you it's 70%. at
Okay.
best.
Better than
I mean,
nothing. Right.
it's better than it's certainly not just they don't do it at all.
Right.
Uh, but it's not 100%. And could you expect it to be 100? I could make the argument, yes. Is it going to be in the real world? Probably not. But at least I guess if you're above 50 and you're working it, then I think you're doing a good job. And that's me. I think that's me saying what everybody wants to hear, but I guess, for real, if you're going to do it, then stand up and do it. You know what I mean? And I don't like people to say they're going to do something and not, and even if it's a manager or a store that I'm working at. Look, don't tell me your walk around and like the Chrysler process. The last I heard was put the blinker on and get the customer involved and do this. No BS. Nobody's going to do that. So don't write that down that you're going to do it. To your point, put a bullet point. These are the things that you have to do in the walk around. These 5 things, that's your walk around. Great. Take some pictures but if you want a picture of the front, the rear, the top, and the grill, then that has to be in the process. And that needs to be the accountability piece needs to be there, and the only way that happens is the manager reviews
Yeah.
or the driveway manager, if we have one, and this group has one in each store. What's your job in life as a lane manager? I would say it would be the rails of the write-up process and making sure that
Absolutely.
happens
Right.
100% of the time. So, yeah, I mean, if they're 70%, I'm probably being generous. Some stores I'm going into that don't have anything. It's just, I just like the idea of holding people accountable for the process. And however that happens, and we were talking with Brad recently, and Brad said, I go out there every single day and I review the numbers, and there's an expectation of X. And if it doesn't happen, still love you. I might even still have a drink with you, but the process wasn't followed appropriately.
Yeah, that's a whole nother subject about today's generation and some folks, because it seems like they want to be liked more than they want to make money, or they want to be liked more than than they want to do a good job. There's a higher priority in that. So when you tell somebody they didn't do a good job, all of a sudden they feel like they you don't like them anymore, and they're crumbling.
I can't
But
work here anymore.
well, listen, we keep talking about at some point having a conversation between management, leadership, and I think the confusion that's out there, one to the other. We're talking about management right now. We have been talking about it, right? It's a skill set to make sure you put a process in, make sure everyone follows the process. What do you do if they don't follow the process? Reinspect the process at certain intervals to make sure it's working. Obviously, it's leadership is obviously the people running through a brick wall with you, right? And it's not always them following a process. But they're going to follow you through. They're going to run through a brick wall, or they got your back if something goes bad, right? And I
I've been
think
doing a lot of
sometimes
research on that, by the way. So
there's
when we decide we're going to have that conversation, what we should do is I should take the management side and you should take the leadership side, because I know right now you want to talk about management and I want to talk about leadership, but we
right.
should flip the script and
We should.
debate the other side.
Well, I think, but I think my always point on that is it's the buzzword stuff that's out there, and you see all these people, and whether it's LinkedIn or whether it's any social media, and they throw out these, they puke out these garbage articles about leadership and this and the other thing, and I feel a lot of times what's missing is good management. Start from the basics. That's just kind of the way I look at it, and you mentioned 70%. I'll take 70% on any process to start with, and then you do continuous improvement, right? And we want to get a little better. The goal is always 100, but let's be realistic. You're not always going to be 100 at everything you do. So you have to be realistic with it.
Yeah, I think we have to be realistic. Yeah, it drives me crazy
I know it does me
because
too, but when you
why
get older,
can
Steve, when you get old like me, you'll learn, you got to pace yourself, and you just be happy with some of you just do, you
well,
know.
I'm an outside service. So my thoughts, quite frankly, most people don't care because I'm an outside service. And they're like, you don't understand. And I don't, and I never even promote like my history or what I've done in the past or anything like that. So again, I will accept that responsibility that I'm an outside service. Obviously, you're running the deal, you're doing it, and my clients are. So I try to be lenient, or I try to accept those things to a point. And then there was a time in my career as well as a trainer where I thought it was important to be liked. Oh, if they like Steve Shaw, they'll tell their boss they like him, and I get hired back. And then
Right.
one day I decided, I don't really care if they like me. What I'm going to get invited back for is, does that advisor make a big fat paycheck, right? Does the manager make a big fat paycheck? And they can like me or not like me. And so I've become very direct when it comes to those things. And let's just forget about the walk around. That's a whole different deal. But if I'm going to present a multi-point inspection, then I have an and if you've hired me for any length of time and I'm in your store, then I have an expectation you're going to go 1, 2, 3. And if it's in your process book, well, I have a higher expectation. There was a manager at this store that had been they've been in our system for many years. And this particular manager, I was coaching someone brand new to do it the way the book says, the way we teach. And the manager was talking about making recommendations and doing this and that. And I'm like, bro, do we make recommendations or do we talk about failed items, right? Do we talk about the minimum requirement? And he's like, he looked at me funny. Well, I realized, and then when I looked at the report, he's never taken a class.
Right.
And so he's not the manager anymore.
Wow.
And
Right.
so that wasn't even because of me I mean, it wasn't, I didn't fire him. I just made the report and then I showed it to the boss and this happened and he's not the
Right.
manager, you know? How can you preach what the company wants if you're not doing it? Uh,
No, that's been my point too with the training and taking the online class and everything else. And, it's one thing to, force your advisors or techs or parts guys to take the training. And then you look in there and you haven't taken one. Well, how the hell do you know what they're training for?
I
Right.
know.
Oh, it's just, that's do as I say, not do as I do, right? And people, again, there's your leadership part, but no, it's true, right? But I think that it's key to you have to understand what the training's about. I mean, otherwise, you're just checking a box.
Right,
That's all
right.
you're doing.
And if you did write it down, if you did write it down, again, I'm going to give you all the props, all the credit. I mean, you took that final step. Everybody knows it. You handed it out. Okay, great. Good job. You're an A plus student or an A student. Now you want to get the plus? Let's go execute. Let's go stand out and watch them. And I'm not going to say it's easy. I would never say that it's an easy thing to do. And like you said, herding cats, you're herding 30 plus different, rooftops plus all the people within that. But as that gets down and down and down, and I think that somebody, at the lowest level has to be that accountability person and make sure that people follow through on what we said. And everybody agreed to it because the signatures on it, they agreed, said, yeah, I wrote it. I said I was going to do it or I was involved, as an advisor, I said, yeah, this is the way from Steve's perspective. As we developed this, it wasn't, I didn't walk in and say, this is Steve's way of doing business. I said, how do you guys want to do it? Here's what happens. How do we do it? What are we going to do? And actually the funniest part was I said, I want every one of you in one store that had 14 advisors. I said, I want every one of you to go home and write out your process. How many processes did we have when they came back the next day?
14.
14. So then we took, and kudos to the manager at the time, he took all 14 processes, went in his office and he looked, and they're pretty similar, right? And so, okay, now we come back with one. Everybody gets it. Do you all believe this is the right? Yeah, that's it, right? I missed that or this or that. Okay, cool. We now have a process that 14 people collaborated on. The manager put his final touch. I would think that everybody should follow that process.
Right.
And you can't give me a reason why you would not follow it.
You wrote it.
You wrote it. You agreed to it. You said, "This is how I'm gonna do business." I love it. We even had contests. We did, we contests, we paid them, we did all this. So it's not a lack of knowing. It's really you made a decision as a associate to not do it. And so I get to actually, I don't like the word confront, but I get to coach you. Here's the rails. We agreed to this, and you're over here somewhere. So get back in line and let's go, right? Still love
That's
you.
all it is.
Yeah.
Right. Correction. So
Yeah.
that's good. I like that. I like that. I like 14 people with all their own opinions or their own process. I like that.
The funny thing is I was telling another dealer about that, and he goes, "We are not effing doing that." He goes, "We're gonna come in and write a freaking process, and they're gonna follow it." I'm like, "Whatever's your pleasure."
Yeah, but I do think the buy-in is the way to do it. I think if you're gonna make something and you're gonna, it's a drastic change in some places. You got to get some buy-in. You got to get some, because it's a lot easier to hold people accountable to a
There you
process
go.
they own. You know, I agree.
Exactly. It's much easier to hold people accountable if they had an input. And you could
Yeah.
make the argument that that's management or that's leadership, you know what I mean? And we could certainly debate that. We ought to put that on our schedule and
We
just do
gotta.
a knockdown, drag out debate about it.
I'm gonna have to do some more research. Then it sounds like you're all geared up for this thing.
I was asked to do a talk on leadership, and sort of because of you, I am the guy that will talk about a vision. I will always talk about a vision. I have a vision for myself, for my company, my relationship, everything. And I think people should have one. But because of what you said, and there's too many people bullshit, pie in the sky, telling their theories on LinkedIn or something. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm never going to use that word again. I'm not going to talk about a vision. So I did some research, and it's actually been pretty good. And I did have Grok help me out a little bit.
Okay.
And so when I get to do my presentation, which will be really super cool, I think I'm going to blow some people's minds because I refuse to say vision.
Okay.
I don't want people looking at me with two heads because
Now,
whenever I say, "What's your vision?" people are like, "What's that?"
listen, that's
I'm
one of the reasons. It's one of the
it's
reasons
it,
why we have these chats. Is it's amazing how you can get off on a tangent and start learning different things and go down these rabbit holes. I love it.
right, exactly.
I'm always trying to learn something new. Or you say something and it gets me going. I like it. I think it's great to keep learning. I think it keeps you young. I think it keeps you fresh. I think it keeps you sharp. And too much of these people are just caught in these ruts, and they they're not broadening their horizons. They're not learning something new, and it makes for a pretty boring life. And definitely boring at work if you're not doing that.
That's right. That's right. So wrap us up, Dave. Tell a GM what can he do to? What is your thoughts on everything we said? How can a GM help? I think a GM could help his service
Yes.
manager with accountability. What could a GM do in your world?
Well, I
GM
think
tip of the day.
The GM would have to make it they would have to make it their philosophy, their culture. I think it's a pretty big undertaking to, put a whole dealership together and put a book for it. So I think, you start with your managers, and I think you do. I like your idea, get some collaborative, get their opinions on things. But I do think that if you can get, some processes down pat, whether it's the way you handle leads, whether it's the way, yeah, but did you document it, right?
These
The way,
signs for sale below. Click the
right.
link and buy the sign. Actually, no.
But no,
You
it's
can buy
true.
them
I think
yourself on
if you can
Amazon for
Google it, I'm sure they'll cut your price out. So they'll cut you out. But I do think you get everybody together, and I think you start small, right?
yeah,
Start with
absolutely.
simple things. Start with your internet process. Start with things you know most about. Get together with your service manager. Talk about your write-up process, your appointment process, your delivery process, whatever. You'll probably find a lot of synergies between all the departments when you
Yes.
really get down to it. It's
Yep.
not that different. So, but
Yep.
I think you start small, and I think you have to make the decision that's what you want to do, because if you're not going to be the guy leading the band, and you're not going to be the ones out there making sure it happens, then there's no use even trying to put a pencil to it, because it's not going to happen.
Absolutely. Well, let's let it go on this point, and I will catch up to you sooner or later next week.
Next week.
Sounds good, Dave.
Fixed
All
Ops
right, bud.
Focus is brought to you by Common Sense. Like, subscribe, and share on all platforms. Side effects may include advisors missing easy upsells, ROs walking out the door, CSI scores tanking, techs chasing comebacks instead of billable hours, your competition stealing your customers, and that special guilt of watching your gross profit bleed out monthly. Results may vary. Consult your Fixed Ops director before ignoring this advice.